All right, the Seattle Seahawks had a great draft just last draft. Have another draft that has potential to be really good. I actually love this draft. I think it's one of my favorites of the class. And again, we knew they were going to get some good players, right? You have extra draft capital. You have 2 first and 2 second round picks. You should get some good players. But I thought that, especially in the first round, I thought they knocked it out of the park. Second round and beyond, some hits and some misses. Love some picks, don't love some others. But in the first round, I really thought that they knocked it out of the park. The two big ones, of course, Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and those were the picks that they kind of felt like they had to hit on to really, get from a playoff team to potentially more than that. Devin Witherspoon, the first pick, who this was a surprise, but I think a good one. I think this was a good selection. Now, I was a little wondering, was Seattle going to feel like they needed another corner? Because obviously Tariq Woolen has been very good. They have some young corners, so I thought they might want to give another year to. I think Kobe Bryant, I was wondering if he was going to get some more playing time. You have Michael Jackson there, who, he's 26. He's still on the young side. But I think they said, you know what? Let's just get the best player available. And I think Witherspoon is that guy. He was 5th on the consensus big board. That's, what you see on the screen. It's, the two numbers are the one on the left is when they were drafted, the one on the right where they were on the consensus big board. So for me, I'm totally fine with this selection. I have no issue with it. I think Witherspoon could be great. And it's a position of importance. I think that teams are kind of starting to wake up a little bit on the idea that, hey, drafting corners and wide receivers early makes some sense. Getting wide receivers and corners early and just spending resources to get them makes sense. Games are won on the outside in today's NFL, so they went out and they got a corner who can cover the outside and a receiver who maybe won't actually be doing too much work on the outside. Could be more of a slot guy, but still, you get the idea. Games are won with throwing the ball in today's NFL, and he can help them throw the ball. You have Tyler Lockett. You have DK Metcalf. So get another receiver. This is smart football. Oftentimes, you're only as good as your third option, so make your third option as good as possible. A lot of teams kind of say, oh, well, we have 2 good options. We don't need a third option. No, still pay attention to that. If you're good at something, don't say, well, we're already good there. Try to be great at it. And that's what they're doing with Smith and Jigba, who I think fits that team perfectly and could be potentially awesome for them. So those picks are great. But again, what made the Seahawks draft last year so good? It actually really wasn't the top picks. Charles Cross came in, and I think he started to improve toward the end of the year, but, he wasn't the reason why their draft class was great. It was because they hit on some of these later picks, which I thought they had a lot of really smart picks throughout. This year, again, like I said, some picks I'm really intrigued by, some picks I'm not as intrigued by. To have a ton of picks, which obviously helps. So, first, Derek Hall, who, listed as an edge rusher here. He's someone who analytics aren't spectacular, and for an edge rusher, I'd like to see a little bit better analytics. To me, this one was one of those, similar to the Boye Mafe pick last year, which I didn't love. Felt like you're chasing a position a little bit that maybe you just don't need to do. I don't know if it's the smartest move to get Derek Hall here. He was 58th on the consensus big board. Felt like a bit of a reach for me. It did. There's things that I like about him. And again, he's physically imposing. Definitely physicality is very good and has, it feels like he has sky-high potential, but so far we just haven't seen him live up to that potential yet. So maybe more of a project-type player, in my opinion. Zach Charbonnet, again, I'm not quite sure how you say his name. He's just like a solid back. He's just like someone who I felt like when I was evaluating him, he's just going to be like a good number 2 back for 8 years. That just feels like who he's at. So of course, it is funny that the Seahawks again draft a running back in round 2, a little bit later on in round 2. Last time was very early, Kenneth Walker was very early in round 2. Zach C here, sort of mid round 2. You see where he was on the consensus big board, right around here. Again, you know me, I don't value the running back position as highly as Seattle does, but fine. I'm not gonna crush it. I think he's a good player. I think he'll help out their team, and I think they know what they're getting with him, spending a mid-second round pick on him. We then have Anthony Bradford, a guy who, they selected with pick 108. He was projected to go 177. So that's not ideal. How are his analytics, which again, for quarterbacks, for offensive linemen, that is something I pay attention to. That is something that tends to translate well to the next level. Good run blocking grade, and actually like good run blocking stats, abysmal pass blocking stuff. Not even just abysmal for an NFL prospect, abysmal at the college level. To me, this is, again, it's another reach. It is. And we have another reach coming up as well with Cameron Young. They got a couple of interior defensive linemen. If they're interior defensive linemen, I just call them, defensive tackle on the, that's just what I put there. But yeah, anyways, Cameron Young, another guy who was projected to go 210th. They pick him at 123rd. And again, once we get to here, I get why they're making this move. Hey, they want someone who they feel like can just come in and be a contributor. That's what they're doing here. Guy who's over 300 pounds can just be a big body in the middle and kind of help them stop the run, which was a weakness for them last year. And, since they didn't go Jalen Carter pick 5, getting him and getting Mike Morris, a couple of guys who can potentially help them do that. I understand the logic behind it, even if it's not necessarily what you typically should do, right? You shouldn't reach based on need, all that stuff. We're talking pick 123 and 151 here. Okay, do it a little bit. Fine. I get it. Next up, again, someone who might just end up being a depth player. But again, the center position is a position where someone's going to have to fill that role. Could it be the player you see on the screen, both his names start with O, that I'm not even going to try to pronounce because I would horribly butcher that. But could he be the guy that you could feel like could potentially come in and play well? Well, again, if we're talking about advanced analytics, his are really good. And he was a bit of a steal here as he was projected to go 131. They get him at 154. And this is the value of having so many of these picks is you can kind of afford to say, you know what, we'll take a couple guys and reach on need a little bit. But then we're still going to go out and we're going to get someone who's actually a bit of a steal and someone who could be potentially very good for us. I could easily see him, honestly, being a starting center for them. I don't think that's crazy to say. Not the fastest player in the world. He isn't going to get up to the second level as quick as maybe you would like him to, but pretty much is going to make his block at the first level the way you want him to. So again, there's worse options for center, although I don't know if I expect him to come in and be like a star starting center or anything right away, but could he be their starting center day one? It's in the cards, I think. Then, safety, Jarek Reed the second was 375th on the consensus big board. I do wonder if, when we get to the 200s, like him and Kenny McIntosh, are we just talking about guys who are, are special teamers at this point? Totally possible. I could easily see them just being special teamers. Although, again, for the halfback, selected at 237, but he was 145 on the consensus big board. So I'm not sure exactly what happened. Again, part of this is consensus big board is based on like mock drafts and based on like people's opinions and draft experts. But obviously, the NFL views these things a little bit differently, and that usually is good for the NFL. Usually, the NFL is a little bit smarter than we are. Although when a guy, typically when there's a big difference on the consensus big board, the way it usually works is if there's a player who is, overdrafted, usually their value ends up being closer to where they were on the consensus big board than where they were drafted. But if a player falls in the draft, usually the NFL is right about that, and usually there is a reason why they fell. So it might just end up being a special teamer, but who knows? Again, there's people that like him, so maybe some reason to get excited. Does have a good PFF grade if you care about that. At the running back position, I do not, but, we'll see. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Seahawks. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.